I want to welcome you all to our meeting tonight on behalf of El Paso County Parks. I'm Elaine Kleckner, the Planning Manager in the Community Services Department. It's good to see familiar faces. Welcome if you haven't been here before. I'd like to introduce some other members of our planning team that will be speaking tonight. Ron Bevins with NES, our lead consultant. Ross Williams next to the easel, he's our park planner. Brad Bixler, Brad Wave, who is our park operations manager. And next to him is Adam Baker, who is the district supervisor for this area. I also see Dana Nordstrom in the very back row. She's our community outreach coordinator, and she can help you find out how to stay involved as the park develops. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our format before we get started. How many of you were at some of the earlier meetings during the master planning phase? I see about half of you. This will be a little different sort of meeting. During the master plan, everything was wide open and we were brainstorming and coming up with our program for the regional park. We're at the point now where we're zeroing in on phase one of the park, and that's the kind of input that would be most helpful to us tonight. So we're going to start with a presentation by myself and Ron. We'll walk you through what we've done in recent months since the master plan was adopted. We'll talk to you a bit about next steps and schedule and those sort of things. We'll take some general questions, but after that, we're going to break into an open house format, and we'll have people at each of the stations. On this side of the room, you can look at the overall master plan for the regional park if you have questions and get more familiar with it. On the other side of the room, you'll see some design development ideas for key features in the park. So feel free to wander. We welcome your input on anything, but tonight is all about phase one. We're excited to be at this point of the process. By way of a bit of background, and I think some of you might already know this, we received the 215 acres at our Falcon Regional Park late last year from the Meridian Ranch developer. Developers can dedicate parkland or pay fees, and we were fortunate to get a dedication of land in an area where we really needed a regional park. People were clamoring for a regional park in this area. We right away launched on development of the master plan. We had a number of public meetings. I think we had at least 3 public meetings. We had stakeholder interviews, and that enabled us to zero in on our program for the park as depicted here, and also in the park master plan, which you can find online, and you can see copies of the plan here tonight. The master plan was approved it went to the Park Advisory Board for endorsement. It was approved by the Board of County Commissioners in March of this year. So after that, we looked for funding opportunities. We had hoped to receive a GOCO grant for the park, which would have gotten us just above $1 million budget, but we were not successful in our bid for that grant. It was a very competitive cycle. I think there were 35 different applicants. We were in the top half of the pack, but there was only about $7 million to go around. But we did manage to assemble other funds, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in more detail. We felt we had enough, we had assembled enough funding for a respectable first phase with some key facilities, so we're ready to go. And we retained NES to help us develop construction documents for that first phase. So we're in what is called the design development phase, and we'll move very quickly to construction documents that will enable us to build the park. So going to the budget piece of this, we have secured $811,000 for phase one. Total build out of the park we've estimated at $4.5 million. So it's an expensive proposition, but we'll be making a dent with this first phase. Ballot question 1A, the return of the Tabor funds to El Paso County Parks, is bringing $250,000 to the project. Regional park fees, another $400,000. And these are park fees that are developed per residence in this area as people go through the subdivision process. So, you know, we've kept those, we've been holding those funds until a regional opportunity came along. We have wind power project funds. As part of the wind power project, $200,000 in mitigation funds was provided by NextEra. And county administration determined that $100,000 of those funds should come towards this worthwhile cause. High Plains Little League has been a great partner to us. They are raising $60,000, pledging $60,000 for the park, and obviously they have a keen interest in the ball fields that you'll see tonight. And then another good partner is Eastern Plains Chamber of Commerce. They want to take the dog park under their wing and are in the process of raising funds. Close to securing $1,000, and they're optimistic that they can raise more. So here you see the project timeline. This has been a pretty aggressive timeline from day one. We are right now, we are right on schedule with our public meeting, second week of August. We have had detailed stakeholder interviews with both High Plains Little League and the Chamber, the Eastern Plains Chamber. You'll see on the heels of this, we will be working again on the construction documents. The design development phase is winding down, then we'll get into construction documents, various approvals, through regional building, through the Development Services Department, and also El Paso County Public Services. And then comes the bidding process where we will be seeking a contractor. So if all goes well, that bid process would start in late September. In October, bid process should be completed by mid-October, and this is all leading towards breaking ground yet this year. We really would like to get some ball fields on the ground this year so High Plains Little League can be out there April of next year. So fairly aggressive schedule, but we think doable. Not all the park improvements will be on the ground by the end of this year. There'll be some in the spring that come in, some of the other park amenities, perhaps like the playground, but the ball fields and the infrastructure that's needed to serve the park is going to be our focus by the end of this year. Without further ado, I want to turn it over to Ron. He's going to walk you through some of the details of the park, and feel free to ask questions as they arise, but if you have detailed discussion, detailed questions, let's wait till we get to the open house part. Thank you all for coming.
Pleasure to be here tonight. I was involved with this process and being able to help the county develop the master plan earlier this winter and spring, and so it's very exciting to be back and have the opportunity to really see this moving forward at a pace that it's moving forward, so it's pretty exciting. I'm going to talk a little bit about the master plan. I know this is probably difficult to see from back there, but I'll give a little brief overview of this, and then the full plan itself you can see in detail is right here if you want to look at some more specifics, but I'll just give some generalities. There were three areas that we kind of identified when we developed the plan. One was the natural areas, we somewhat described it, where the northern 110 acres, I believe, this is future Rex Road that will tie into Eastonville here. Everything north of that would remain primarily in its natural state with some trail systems, some parking trailheads, and some equestrian facilities. So that would really remain pretty much as is with some trailhead facilities here. And then we had located a dog park right there in the very southeast corner of that north quadrant. Then the central area became what was known as the activity area, where we wanted to get the focus of all the active uses in there. So that's where the ball fields are located, playgrounds are located, restroom facilities, pavilions, picnic areas, those sorts of things will be located in this central area. And then the very southern piece was looking at an educational component. So that's being looked at by the El Paso County Conservation District, who's going to look at developing some demonstration sort of opportunities there, from erosion control, windbreaks, those sorts of things that can be a really community asset from an educational component out in the county. So the entire master plan ultimately will have 6 ball fields, which will multi-purpose. They're intended to support both softball, adult softball, as well as Little League baseball functions, and 4 multi-purpose fields here, which would support soccer, football, lacrosse, those sorts of activities. Ultimately, we're hoping that at least one of each field can be an artificial turf field so we can cut down on water use. It's almost 3 to 4 times the cost of a turf field, so that will be a future development, but that is the ultimate intent, is to get artificial fields developed in future phases. Then we have parking to support all of that along Eastonville Road with access to Eastonville Road and future Rex Road, some multi-purpose courts as well. And we can provide some further information if there are any questions about the master plan itself, but this is what was approved by the Parks Board and the Board of County Commissioners. Then I just want to talk a little bit about, this is the phase 1 plan of the master plan that moved forward. So this is directly in the document, and I want to kind of describe too how these things sort of evolve over time. A master plan is really looking at locating services and facilities and identifying a program that will be incorporated throughout the park. So that is included in here. And then when we get into the design, development, and construction documents, which you're starting to see over here on this side, that is what is starting to really finalize all the details of the park layouts, locations, and those sorts of things. But originally, from a phase 1 master plan, these are the elements that we were talking about. 2 baseball fields, so they were natural grass, which are located right here within the overall park area and the activity area. And the baseball fields will be natural grass, as I mentioned, will include bleachers and, and will include dugouts. As part of that, again, they're multi-purpose in that they could function both as a Little League field, which has a shorter infield, or adult softball, which has a larger infield. So it can work both ways as far as the use of the fields themselves. We'll have one multi-purpose field directly south of the 2 ball fields, and then parking to support it, a restroom facility, a playground component as part of it, the dog park, as we mentioned, which would be part of phase 1, which is located here. The parking is part of the dog park to support it, kind of a trailhead use from the dog park perspective. Site furnishings, which means benches, picnic tables, those sorts of things will be included. A little bit of landscape improvements, particularly around the activity area and some of the pedestrian areas where the parking is. And then drainage improvements that are just necessary to accommodate the site drainage, and utilities, getting water and electricity to the site. Then this is actually the phase 1 plan. So what I wanted to do is kind of demonstrate the master plan approach for phase 1. And then as we develop it, we're starting to get into more details of the phase 1 plan. And you can see one thing we did is we thought it would be better to reorient the fields and we had one here and one here per the master plan. We thought maybe from a frontage of Eastonville Road and the improvements off of Eastonville, it would be better to develop on the front side and then fill in on the back side. So that's one of the evolutions that took place as far as the fields, but we still have the 2 ball fields, and we still have the 1 multi-purpose field here. Parking to support that. There will be a small playground area in that central area as part of phase 1. There will be hopefully pavilion spaces. As we develop this further, we're going to sharpen our pencils. As Elaine described, we have that $811,000 essentially to be able to build this. So we've got to make sure that what we're proposing can be improved in there. We'll include the dog park. One change between the master plan and the phase 1 development now is originally the dog park was 4 acres. Now we're looking at thinking that a lot of people thought the 4 acres wasn't quite big enough. So we're proposing about a 10-acre dog park here. And I'll talk a little bit more detail. This area up here again is 110 acres, I believe, total. So 10 acres will be devoted to the dog park and 100 acres will be left for ultimately equestrian use, trail use, both from a multi-purpose trail as well as more of a single track bike trail sort of thing, bike and pedestrian trail. Site furnishings again will be included, which will be benches and picnic tables, landscape improvements for the entryways off of Rex Road, off of Eastonville, and the immediate kind of gathering spaces that will be part of the park, drainage improvements again, and utilities and water to the site. And one of the first things we had to deal with is water. There is no water on the site, and ultimately we're going to have water being brought courtesy of Meridian Ranch to the property. The issue was a bit of a timing sort of component involved because we're going to have to irrigate these fields and provide some potable water to the restroom facilities. And so what we've done is Meridian Ranch currently is developing down here to the southwest of the park site, just west of the high school. And they've got water lines stubbed out in here. They're going to extend a water main to this general location. And then this park development will extend it from here all the way up to right there. So that's about 4,000 feet, nearly a mile of water line that needs to be included. So that was one of the first hurdles we had to deal with, is how are we going to get water into the site? So fortunately, Meridian Ranch came to the table and is helping us out and getting us close, and then we're going to bring it the rest of the way. This is primarily going to be irrigation related, and because ultimately a water main will be extended from Meridian Ranch that will support more potable uses, but we'll still be able to use that from a potable use standpoint, potentially providing drinking fountains and facilities with the restrooms there. The restroom itself will be a vault sort of system at this time because we don't have any sewer in the area, although ultimately that will be provided too in the future. So that was the first hurdle we had to get over, and now we're through that. And then I want to just talk about the different areas that are going to be developed as part of phase one, briefly kind of run through that. This is the activity area as I described, which is the central portion of the site, just south of the future extension of Rex Road. Primary access will be off of Eastonville, here one point of access, and we're locating this in a way that the future park will develop to the north here. So that allows us the opportunity to get a central roadway in here, kind of a terminus feature here where we could have a pavilion or a focal point here and parking to support that. But included with the phase one in the activity area are the 2 baseball fields. So we'll have these 2 fields here that will be fully developed. We show a grass infield, but ultimately it'll probably be a skinned infield in there right here. So it'll be all dirt essentially, but it'll be full with backstops, bleachers for viewing around the perimeter. It will include dugouts with shade structures and those sorts of facilities. So it can be used both from a Little League perspective and even from potentially tournaments or something like that that could occur in the area from a softball area. So it'd be fully functional baseball fields and softball fields when this is developed in phase one. And again, we wanted to include a multi-use field, so this will essentially just be a large turf area that could be used for lacrosse, soccer, football, those sorts of facilities in here. A parking area that will support that. So right now we have about 60 spaces identified in there, and there will be some areas for overflow parking as well. Ultimately, a playground area will be located there so we can have activities for the little kids while other things are happening in the fields. Good visual tie-in between the 2 pieces. Restroom facility, so that will be located in the general central core area of the active use space. The playground that I talked about. Site furnishings again will be included, so we'll have benches and picnic tables there. Landscape improvements, so we'll have general streetscape improvements, some along Eastonville and along the parking areas, and really creating more of an entry element as you drive into the park. Drainage improvements again is to deal with the drainage and how the drainage comes through here, and it ties into the existing drainage system, so that's fairly minor. And then the utility, bringing the water into the site and electricity for some of the uses. It's going to be very nominal as far as electrical needs out here now, maybe some minor site lighting, but the fields aren't going to be lit at this time. The master plan did identify potential lighting of the fields, but that would happen in the future. And then the next component is the dog park. And as I had mentioned, again, we talked about the original master plan had 4 acres. We've enlarged that to 10 acres total. It's located in the very southeast corner of that 110 acres north of the future Rex Road. So we've got that accommodated. Some of the trail systems in the future will wrap around the dog park area, but it will be a fully fenced and enclosed dog park. We'll have a parking area here that will accommodate 40 cars. And then we put within the dog park, there's a small dog area too that will be segregated from the big dog area So essentially that'll be about a 2-acre area that would support small dogs, and then the remaining 8 acres would support the large dogs. So this will have some nominal site furnishings, probably a few benches in here, trash receptacles, those sorts of things, some nominal landscape improvements along here so we can try and introduce some shade into the parking lot, and then finally drainage improvements again as we deal with the site drainage that is coming through there, and that will be fairly nominal as well as far as the drainage improvements that will be needed. Ultimately, trail systems will be built through here, so we're accommodating a corridor along Eastonville Road between that and the dog park that will allow the trail system to run through, and then a future trail system through that northern portion of the site. So that is really the program in a nutshell as far as the phase 1 plan. I think our intent now is to be able to break out into groups. Elaine and myself and Ross will be staffing the boards over here, give you an opportunity to walk around. We'll take some comments and notes and hopefully be able to incorporate things and ideas if there are anything beyond the master plan that we'll take forward as the design moves forward with the process. So unless you have anything to add, Elaine?
Before we break into the open house portion, are there any questions? General questions? Yes.
It is park system now. Is there any way to identify where future Rex Road will come out onto Eastonville?
This is shown per the Meridian Ranch sketch plan. So that's pretty much been identified where it's going to come out. I mean, it's not to the foot, but it's...
No, what I'm asking is if I drive up Eastonville Road, is there going to be anything there? Because if I want to go ride the open space, since it is now parkland, how do I know that I am north where I'm supposed to be and not down?
Good question. This parking area will be developed here as far as for the dog park. So everything north of the dog park essentially will be, would have to see what would take place, because you're right, Rex Road won't be here.
It's not there yet.
Right, and it'll be a while before it's there. So I think the intent is, and maybe the county can talk about it too, is what the potential use of that can be up there prior to the trails being developed. We kind of talked a little bit about it being open use for horseback riding, hiking, those sorts of things, because it's going to be a while before some of the future improvements with the trail system will go in there. So that's a good question and point as far as delineating where that area is and where future Rex Road will be. So we'll have to do that. I'm sorry, is it? This one right here? That's the southern edge of, I'm trying to remember that. Latigo? Yeah. So there's no, the next road's further up there. Yeah, I don't know if we've got the overall, I don't know if, oh, this does kind of show it. So here's the trails or Latigo right here. I think the road you might be referring to must be up here somewhere. Yes, Susan.
Can you remind us how, again, it connects with the overall regional trail system up in that area?
Yeah, I was talking about that too, and we should have. I mean, we've identified that in the master plan, and maybe I'll need Elaine to talk to that too about the future trail system, because there will be a regional trail paralleling Eastonville Road that will ultimately tie into future county trails to the north, which include, did you bring your trails map? Oh, yeah. I'm going to just lean over. Okay.
Yes. So Eastonville Road is the location of a primary regional trail that will be built in the future phase with the park. Actually, we think it's such an important element. We're actively looking to secure funding for that trail, and that will be one of the next thing that's done after this Phase 1A, what we presented to you tonight. So Eastonville Road is a primary north-south the spine of the trail system in this area. East-west connection will be made through the park. There'll will be several ways to work your way through the Meridian Ranch development. If you look at our Trails Master Plan, that link runs pretty much central through Meridian Ranch. So we will designate through the park that east-west linkage. As you get further south, of course, there's ultimately the connection to the Rock Island Trail, important east-west link, and a whole network of trails up in the Black Forest area if you continue north on Eastonville. We did bring a copy of that Trails Master Plan map, so if you want to take a closer look at that, we'll have that out with the other boards. Any other questions before we break up? Yes. Right now we're thinking the dog park area would be the logical place. We have discussed, as Ron said, you know, with the trail being a bit out into the future, allowing that cross-country general access in that northern area. So that's something we'll continue to look at as we work on design development. You know, we know horse trailers have special needs. We'll see what we can do in that northern portion. Ultimately, on the build-out of the plan, if you look at the overall master plan, there is a large dedicated equestrian parking lot, but we'll see what we can do in the interim to address that need.